Hey guys, Chris here. Tonight I am in the Sierra Nevada mountains and we are going to talk about national parks and what happens when someone is missing and search and rescue find nothing. They vanished. That's next. All right, for tonight's beer, we have from Deschutes Brewery, Neon Daydream Hazy Ale. That looks pretty tasty. We're gonna drop that into the creek, cool her down. Let's crack this beer open here. Get to work here. I got a cool spot tonight. I came here once before, but I like this spot, so. All right, let's see if we can. There we go. Touche. All right, cheers. That is tasty. That is hazy ale. That is really tasty though. Kind of got a sweetness to it. It's an ale, so. So our national parks are a great resource for us living in this country as well as around the world. There's 84 million acres of land within the national park system. A lot of people visit these parks, obviously. And every year there's thousands of people that disappear and are lost. Most of them, about 90+%, are found. In fact, they're found within the first about 6 to 12 hours, if not the first 24 hours. But usually they're found, rescued. Some of them have died. They falls, drownings. Search and Rescue does a great job. They've really vastly improved their numbers, their rate of rescue over the decades. They've learned a lot. This particular story is one of those turning points where they made drastic changes to their search and rescue operation, how they do things. So the Great Smokey Mountain National Park has got about 500,000 acres of forested ridges, streams, rivers, waterfalls, obviously cliffs and wildlife. It's on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee. And back in 1969, there was an incident there that happened to the Martin family. And the Martin family was from Knoxville, Tennessee. And every year they would go on a camping excursion to the Great Smokey Mountain National Park. They had their father, William, grandfather, Clyde, Dennis, and Doug, the kids, the boys, were going on this camping trip. This was Dennis's first camping trip. He was 6 years old, 1969. He was born 1962, same year I was born. So him and I would have been the same age. In fact, I think he was born about a month and a half before I was born, maybe 2 months, June. He was born in June 1962. But this family went to Cades Cove, which is a small valley with a very historical valley with old buildings and a ranger station there and the trailhead. So that's where they departed from. And their plan was to go from Cades Cove to Russell Field, so a series of switchbacks up this ridge, and they got to Russell Field, which is a big, kind of an open meadow with really good views. There's a lot of forested ridges, so it's hard to get really good views. So people like this route and these routes. First day, nothing happened. Really good day. Dennis kept up well with the rest of the family. This was his first camping trip. The next morning, this was in June of 1969. The next day, June 14th, they got up and they continued up the ridge to Spencefield from Russell Field. Again, spending the night, and I believe they camped in stone shelters up there, so they didn't have to bring all their gear. Not positive. They got to Spencefield, great views of the other ridges, and just for miles, they could see for miles out. And this field had thickets of trees in it as well. Big grassy open area, but thickets of trees. They met another family up there, friends of the Martin family, and they had a couple of boys. And the boys were playing in this meadow. Parents, the grandfather and the two dads were watching the boys. And then the boys huddled up and were talking. And the parents could see, the adults could see that they were planning something. Turns out they were going to kind of prank the parents and go into the thickets from where they were and come around through the thicket and come up behind the parents and surprise them, scare them. Dennis, the 6-year-old, had a red shirt, and the boys said, well, Dennis, you're going to give us away, so why don't you go into that thicket and you'll come up this side and go around and come up behind the parents and scare them. We'll go into this thicket and come around this way. And a thicket is essentially smaller trees, kind of brush, bushes, pretty good size, but it's not like a total forest because you're up on this big ridge. The boys went in on the left side, and it took them a couple, 3 minutes to come around. Dennis went in the opposite side and was supposed to come around this way. The boys surprised the parents. They played along with it. Jumped out, scared, boo, whatever they were doing. Dennis never came out. A couple minutes went by after everyone went in the woods. About 3 minutes went by, and the parents quickly got concerned. Okay, where's Dennis? He's not coming out. And they were watching him. They saw him go into the trees, and he just never came out. So William, the father, immediately ran over to the thicket. He's running back and forth, shouting Dennis's name. Very concerning at this point. Very alarmed. And everybody else was moving around too. The grandfather, the other dad. The boys were there, staying put, but they looked all around these two thickets. They couldn't see Dennis anywhere. The father said, I'm going to go down the trail, and the Appalachian Trail came right through there. So he went down the Appalachian Trail, shouting Dennis's name, looking left and right, nothing, and he goes about a mile, doesn't find anything, decides, I'm going to continue. So he continues another mile. He goes about 2 miles. And then he realizes he's gone probably too far. There's no way Dennis, the 6-year-old, is going to go beyond a couple miles in just a matter of a few, minutes. So he quickly turns around, comes back to Spence Field, where everyone else is at, and they didn't find Dennis either. And then the grandfather says, I think I'm going to go back down the trail to Russell Field and then down to Cades Cove and get the Rangers to help us because we suddenly have a situation on our hands. This was about 4:30 in the afternoon. It took the grandfather, Clyde, about 3 hours to get down to the ranger station. He got there after 8 o'clock, and about 8 o'clock, a storm was coming in. Winds were picking up. It was harder to hear either way. People looking for Dennis, and Dennis shout, if it was Dennis was to shout back. The wind was picking up. It was really getting harder to hear, and it was raining. 2.5, 3 inches of rain that night. So Clyde gets down to the Cades Cove ranger station, gets some rangers, and they send up a small group of rangers to help look to find Dennis before it's too late. And it took them some time to get back up. They searched all night long, the rangers and the adults. So the next morning at 5 a.m., the official search and rescue operation for Dennis Martin began, which was June 15th, 1969. Turns out they got local volunteers, rangers, 40 Boy Scouts showed up. They also had the National Guard, Coast Guard, and the Green Berets were training in nearby Fort Bragg, and they sent 60 Green Berets to help with this search effort. It had been misting and foggy that morning, which is very common in Great Smokey Mountain National Park and in the Appalachian Mountains. That's why they call it the Great Smokey Mountains, is not because of fire and smoke, it's because of the consistent fog and mist in the mornings usually. And it continued to rain, which was a huge problem because it was washing away any tracks, like I mentioned, as well as any scent that bloodhounds or track dogs would find. And it turned out with all these people, they were starting to have problems with too many people doing too many different things and obliterating any tracks that they might have found. Also, with the continued rain, the helicopters were grounded, roads getting in and out, just to the park there. It could be muddy, raining, and the creeks were high, which made them dangerous if you got near them or tried to cross them, as well as if you know creeks like in the springtime, this creek right over here is really loud, meaning you can't hear anybody either direction. It's just really difficult to hear. So this search effort ballooned over the next several days to over 1,400 people. Turned out it was the largest search effort in Smoky Mountain National Park history, Great Smokey Mountain National Park. Largest ever. And they looked all over this ridge and very rough terrain because the Spence Field is up here and then it drops off into the forest like that, and it's very steep, so it's really rough terrain to work, to search systematically. They tried their best. Still, they found nothing. No Dennis Martin, 6-year-old boy. Where did this boy go? I mean, he was just there a few minutes and they disappeared and they couldn't find him. They found a footprint of an Oxford shoe near a stream, and it matched the description of a shoe Dennis was wearing. They followed it down towards the stream, and they found next to it in sequence of the tracks, a barefoot, meaning obviously one of his shoes fell off, and now this, if it was Dennis's footprint, he lost his shoe and he was walking down towards the stream. The rangers dismissed it because they had already searched that area. They didn't think it was Dennis. Not much after that, they found a shoe and a sock, roughly the same size. I believe it matched the Oxford shoe description. Still nothing. Nothing. They found nothing. And this search effort got big. It got national attention. The FBI were called in. Psychics from around the country were getting, however they get information, were calling in and putting out, tips that they thought. There was a tourist that saw something earlier that same day on June 14th. He was about 5 or 6 miles down the mountain from where Dennis disappeared. He had heard a sickening scream, sounded like a small child, and then he saw a rough-looking, hairy man, not necessarily Bigfoot, I don't know though for sure, running right after this and hurrying through the woods and disappearing. They also heard right after that, at least according to this tourist and according to one report that I read, they saw a white car take off really quickly and head down the road right after they heard the scream, and then they saw this guy. And another report said that this man had something over his shoulder that was red, like the red shirt Dennis was wearing. They speculated possible moonshiners, rough, uncapped, pretty hairy, pretty rough looking character. National Park at that time dismissed that as being connected to Dennis's disappearance because it was 5-6 miles down the mountain and there was no trail connecting the two areas. So they dismissed it. And there's different theories about that as well. So it turns out this search effort, it was so big, but with like the Boy Scouts and people leaving footprints over everywhere, they were trampling any possible evidence, clues, tips to help them find Dennis. Dennis was never found. The search effort was cut down dramatically about June 26th. June 29th, it was abandoned. They were done searching. And then by September 14th, 1969, it was closed, meaning they were done searching. They were open to finding any more clues, but they needed something. They needed a witness, clothing, something to work with. They didn't find anything. So with how this search played out, with how many people were involved, it turned out they really learned a lot through this one incident, this one search and rescue, because they had got so many people in there. Their philosophy was to just really literally flood the area with as many people as possible, and they thought if enough people are walking around looking, searching, and yelling somebody's name, they're going to find somebody. But it didn't really work out that way, and they saw that with so many people on the ground looking that weren't really organized, didn't really know what they were doing, it really hampered their efforts to find Dennis because clues were trampled. I mean, you have 40 Boy Scouts and they got their kids, so they're going to have small footprints, right? And any small clues are going to get quickly lost in this chaos of people. So if any one good thing came out came about from Dennis's disappearance was that search and rescue dramatically changed how they go about searching for lost people, particularly in national parks. They're more scientific, they have better trained people, smaller groups of people, and they're assessing the situation as they go and really trying not to miss one small clue. Any kind of a clue would help. A sock, a shoe, a banana peel, anything that they could find. Tracks, obviously. And also there's a psychology that they've learned and trained search and rescue people. When people are missing, there's a certain mindset of fear, anxiety. Many people keep moving when they need to stop and stay put because they tend to make things worse when they continue to move, and they're just desperate to get out and get back to where they were, and they make things worse. But there's a whole psychology that these people understand in search and rescue. So if anything good came out of it, it was that. And from that time forward, it helped with National Park Search and Rescue, which their rates have gone up for rescue dramatically because of that. But there are still people that disappear in the wilderness, never to be found, without a trace. And Dennis Martin was one of those people in June of 1969. All right. That's my story for tonight, you guys. Wow. It's really quieted down here. I can hear the creek over here. But yeah, it's pretty dark in here. I'm not too far from the road. I don't have too far of a hike, so it's all good. But I really appreciate you guys. Little different tonight doing missing persons. Really, it's good to know, good information to know. There's missing 411. That whole book series. I'm going to be checking into that. And I got a lot more coming, so I'm excited to keep going this summer, and a lot coming up. So, all right, thank you for watching, you guys. We will see you on the next one. As always, keep hiking.